course. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Something I want to say, Shauna, is that, I moved to another little town. So I was at the post office the other day, and the lady at the post office told me my neighbors bought me a Dutch apple pie to welcome me to the neighborhood. But they came by every day for several days in a row, and they said I was never here. I don't know, maybe I was in Levita or something. So they ended up eating the pie themselves. Yesterday, I saw them walking their dogs, and so I told them that the lady at the post office had told me that, and they said, yep, and we've ordered, she told us you're home now, and we've ordered you another pie, and we're going to bring it by tomorrow. So there's a possibility that they could show up in this hour. And if they do, I'm going to get up and give them some attention, because they tried for a week and I wasn't here, right? So I just wanted to give you that heads up, Shauna. You might want to queue up a video or something just in case they arrive and I dart out just like that, okay? Hopefully they'll show up afterwards. But, it just feels like I don't want them to show up and then say, sorry, I'm busy. Other than that, hey, everybody. It's good to see you. I'm looking at me. Let me switch to gallery. I prefer to look at you all. There you are. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you. I got an email from Andy, and he pointed out that before Christmas, I was like on quote 374. And then after Christmas, I was in the mid 400s. He said something, and he said, you made this huge jump. I just want to make sure that that was on purpose. So I went back and looked, and it wasn't on purpose. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I sat down and was reading out of the Stillness, or if it has something to do with the fact that I got a new phone over Christmas, but I had skipped several. So I went back and looked at them, and we don't need to cover all of them, because out of the Stillness is kind of in order of my own learning, my own realization, right? So by talking about later quotes, we've kind of already covered those earlier stages that were skipped, but I did find some that might be worth going back and looking at. So today we are going to go back and start looking at a few of these that I think are worth going back and looking at. And today we're going to start with number 388. And this is what 388 says. That alone can be regarded as the truth, which has always been and which will always be. Very short quote. That alone can be regarded as the truth, which has always been and which will always be. And in Out of the Stillness, we're actually going to look at quote 388b. And this is what 388b says. Since I am before mind, can I look at mind and determine what it is? Yes, I should be able to do that. So what do I see that I call mind? Mind is the appearance that occurs when attention goes to thought. I can't find anything else that I call mind. I am not an appearance. My presence is not limited to those times when attention is on thought. Since that's what mind is, I can't be mind. I am beyond mind. Wow, I wrote at that point. Wow. It's interesting because, again, the quote says, that alone can be regarded as the truth, which has always been and which will always be. And of course, it's not talking about mind, right? It's talking about isness or awareness or self or whatever words you want to put on it. And what most of us do, either we're aware of it or we're not aware of it, is identify with mind. In fact, Angelo was just talking in the video that Shauna was playing. He was talking about how when people get into a political discussion or fight, really, debate, the reason they're fighting so hard for their point of view is because they think they are that point of view, right? That's them. So we don't realize, or most people don't realize, that we actually identify with mind. No, people out there in the world, they don't go around saying typically, I am my mind. Unless they have a lot of pride in their mind, then maybe they do. But most, they just have no idea. But that is the primary thing that we identify with. Even the body is secondary. It's the mind that identifies with the body, and we identify with the mind. So this actually was a pretty deep scene for me, a pretty deep realization for me, looking and noticing, first of all, what is mind? I asked myself, what is mind? If I am before mind, then I should be able to see mind and determine what mind is. So what is it? We use this word all the time. I remember, I think it was Ken Wapnick many years ago saying, the mind is not the brain. Okay, well, that tells me what it's not. But what is it then? What is it? So what I did on this day was I just sat and I waited for mind. I waited for that which I could point at and say, that's mind. And, sometimes I've commented before that thoughts are like roaches. I used to live in Florida and, there's roaches around there. And what happens when you walk in the kitchen at night, you turn on the light, they run, they hide, right? They don't hang around and say hey to you. So mind is like roaches. When you turn on the light, when you turn on the awareness, when you say, okay, I'm going to watch mind now, it like hides. But as we all know, if you wait long enough, it comes back, right? So I'm sure when I said, okay, I'm going to look at mind and see what mind is, I'm sure at first there was just awareness. Mind went and hid like a roach. And so at first, even though I am, right, there was nothing that I could point at and call mind at first. But of course I waited, and probably was only, 30 seconds or so. And what I call mind came creeping back in. And then I would look at it and notice, oh, that's what I call mind. And then it would disappear again. Like a roach, you would, and so I would wait. And then it would start to, creep back in again. I'd say, oh, there's that mind. And what I began to notice as I wrote here is it's an appearance, right? There's only a mind when the thoughts creep back in and the attention kind of unconsciously goes back to the thought. When those thoughts start creeping back in, and then, the attention habitually kind of unconsciously goes to the thought, that's what we call mind. It's just an appearance and it's not there all the time. So how could I be the mind? Because during those times, those, 30 seconds or whatever, when I was sitting here waiting for mind to show up so I could see it, I was here and mind wasn't. So how could I be mind? And this was the first time, you hear masters say the mind is not real, or masters maybe say there is no mind. This is the first time that I saw the truth in those statements. Right? It's like I want to say like a chemical reaction that occurs when attention goes to thought. Then there's the appearance of something that seems to be a mind. And because most of us have attention on thought all the time, mind seems pretty dang constant, but it isn't. It's only an appearance that's appearing constant because our attention is unconsciously going to thought all of the time. So since I am before mind, can I look at mind and determine what it is. Yes, I should be able to do that. So what do I see that I call mind? Here's where there was a gap, right? There was a gap as I'm watching. Within it, I caught it. Mind is the appearance that occurs when attention goes to thought. I can't find anything else that I'd call mind. In other words, I was sitting there looking for it. I was sitting there wanting to say, there it is, there it is. And I couldn't find anything that I could say, there it is, except attention going to thought. Why don't you guys try it for a second? Just step back for a second and decide that you're gonna look for mind so you can say, there it is. Did you see it? And what was it? What's mind? Somebody tell me what mind is from your own experience. George.
It's a thought stream.
And it's the attention going to the thought stream. Yeah, that's it. That's all it is. That's all it is. And if there isn't any attention going to a thought stream, there is no mind. So see, it's just an appearance. And is it you, George?
It feels like George, but I've got to think it's not George.
Well, let me say this, George. Can you find any gap at all when you are present and the thought stream isn't?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I have moments where my mind is blank.
There you go. Then it can't be you. If it's not here all the time and you are, right? It can't be you. It only seems like it because of all the habitual attention we give to it. And this is why meditation is important. You know, and there are various forms of meditation, but meditation gives us the opportunity to be without being in mind. And so it gives us the opportunity to see I'm not mind, because I am and mind isn't, right? Mind isn't right now. Yeah, so that was 388B. I thought that was worth going back to. Now, 389 in my journal is very long. I haven't even read it, but when I saw how long it was, I thought, well, maybe we should look at it, because apparently I was looking at something. So why don't we go look at 389 and see what it was? First, I'll start with the quote in 7 Steps to Awakening. Mind alone is the seed for this delusion of world appearance. It is the mind that gives rise to the false sense of I and mine. So that's an interesting quote, because at least to me, it says 2 things. One, it says mind is the seed of the world. And then it also says that mind gives rise to the sense of a person. So it's really saying mind is responsible for both. Mind alone is the seed for this delusion of world appearance. It is the mind that gives rise to the false sense of I and mine. So we're going to look at this, and it's so long, I don't think I'll read the whole thing and then look at it. I think we'll kind of look at it as we read it, because it's very long. So number 389. Let's separate I for a moment into object I, which can be seen, and I, which cannot be seen. So I'm giving some little nicknames here. So we got to be real clear on the difference of how these nicknames are going to be used. So when I'm talking about I'm talking about something that can be seen. So I could be the body, or I could be a thought, right? Or I could be an emotion, right? These things that we tend to identify with, but if we're really discerning, we notice they're objects, we can see them. This is a term I borrowed from Ramana Maharshi. He used to sometimes refer to the true self as I, kind of like go back deeper, right? I. So I is the term I'm giving to the self that cannot be seen, which we call the true self. It's definitely not an object. So let's separate I for a moment into object I, which can be seen, and I, which cannot be seen. Let's begin with the body. There is strong attachment to this body. I seem to be in this body. It seems that if there is no body, there would be no I. If the body is sick or injured, I am sick or injured. Is this true? So here's where the inquiry is going. Oh, this is funny. You know what started happening a few seconds ago? Literally, my eye started itching right here in the corner. Isn't that funny? Because look at this next line. Right now, my eye itches. Isn't that funny? I guess something in the universe wants me to be able to play along in real time. So right now, my eye itches, and it does. It itches right here in the corner. So right now, my eye itches. Here's the inquiry. Do I itch? Do I itch? As I look carefully at this, I see the eye itches. I see the sensation of itching. But I notice that if I watch with subtle attention, I can distinguish between I, which does not experience the sensation of itching, and the body, which experiences the sensation. I can see or watch the sensation, but the seer or watcher itself has no sensation. The body then could be called object I. It can be seen. I often refer to it as I, but the I who sees the body cannot be seen. That is I, non-object I. So do most of you guys, have you played my finger pinch game? This is really the same as the finger pinch game, right? Where you pinch the finger and you feel the pain. And then you notice, if you haven't played this game, you really do have to pinch it so you can feel the pain. See, I'm really, really pinching my finger here. Then you notice the finger feels the pain. Awareness doesn't, right? You're actually seeing the pain. How friggin' amazing is that? That's amazing. And if you pay attention, which one, sometimes I use the word is closer or is more intimate. Which one is the closer or the more intimate I, and which one is the more distant or the object I, the body or the awareness? And again, if you pinch that finger and you look, you can see that the awareness, which is feeling no pain at all, is closer. It's a truer I. The body is kind of like one removed. It's a little distant by comparison, right? This is the same thing. I was playing that game with an eye that was itching, but it's the same thing. And by doing that, I can see for myself that I am not the body. Because the finger does feel the pain. Don't get me wrong. I can feel that pain in the finger, but I can see that it's in the finger and not in awareness. I have no pain. Therefore, I am not the body. The body is something I somehow experience, an object I experience, but it is not I. It is not the true I. I'm going to continue. Now let's look at thoughts. I seem to think thoughts, and often I identify with thoughts as me. If I think I do not like whatever, there is an immediate experience of not liking. But I have seen that the relationship between thought and experience only exists when I am not alert to thought. If I am alert to the thought I do not like, and I accept that the thought has no meaning, there isn't an experience of not liking. With alertness, thoughts happen with no change in experience. So I'm going to stop right there. So the first time I noticed this, I'm sure I've told you guys this story before, was way back at the very, very beginning of my spiritual path. In fact, I was still working my job in Massachusetts. I hadn't left my job yet. And there was this woman there at work that I did not like. Every time I saw her coming, it was like, ah, shit, here she comes, right? I did not like this woman. I didn't like anything about her, nothing about her. Just not even the way she walked, not the way she looked, not what she had to say. You guys have all been there with somebody, right? Yeah. Well, I was also at the beginning of my spiritual path, though, and I was talking to Holy Spirit about everything. And although I don't remember the exact conversation or how this came about, what I remember is the realization that the thought, I don't like this person, was first, and the experience of feeling like I don't like her was second. And I became guided to watch for that and to watch and see if I could bypass the thought, if I could actually have the experience. And it was a miracle at that point on my spiritual path that I could even do what the guidance was asking me to do, because really I was a baby on the spiritual path. But I was able to do it enough to see that, if I had no thought that I don't like her, when she came towards me, there was just this openness. I would call it a curiosity. Like, oh, what's she going to say? But it wasn't the, I don't like her. It was like, oh, you could always tell she had a very business-like approach. You could always tell she was coming for a reason. She wasn't just coming. So there'd be this open curiosity about, why she was coming, but the I don't like wasn't there. And so then as my spiritual path matured, I began to play with this I don't like thought with all kinds of things. Like, let's say I'm on a bus and this person sits next to me that, has this bad body odor. And the first thought is, oh my God, I don't like this. And I'd stop and say, wait a minute. How do I experience this without that thought? And literally I'd go, and the first whiff, might still be some thought. Well, let me try it again. And pretty soon I started finding, and I played this with skunks, I played this with manure, I played this with all kinds of things. I found out that these smells don't smell bad if I don't think first that they smell bad. Isn't that amazing? That's amazing, but I found it to be true. And then the next thing I remember playing it with was temperature. Because I like this middle range, not too hot, not too cold. Right? But if it got too cold, I did not like it. I mean, it put me in a grumpy, grumpy mood. And if it got too hot, I did not like it. It put me in a grumpy, grumpy mood. But then I started noticing it was the mind saying, I hate the cold. It was the mind saying, I hate the heat. So what if I bypass the mind's thoughts? How does cold feel without I hate the cold? But what I discovered is, I told you guys last week about when I was walking out here, and I don't know, I think the wind chill was like -16. It was pretty cold, and the wind was really blowing, so it was pretty cold. And I told you that, the body couldn't really take it. Like my dog's body couldn't take it. She was in a coat, like 5 minutes, let's go back, right? But I wasn't grumpy. I wasn't unhappy. I found that attitudinous, I mean, there's still a factual awareness. This is too hot. I need a hat and water. This is too cold, for the body, right? I need coat and all this stuff, or maybe I shouldn't even be out here, right? There's still that awareness there, but the attitude is gone, right? The grumpiness is gone. The dislikeness is gone, not the intelligence. So I found out that if I, for most things, I'm not going to say everything because I'm not, but maybe I haven't gotten rid of the thought yet. I'm not sure yet. I'm quite ready for liver. I don't even know if I want to be that enlightened to say I like liver. So don't get me wrong. I'm not there with everything, but I did do it with tomatoes. Do you know that all my life I've hated tomatoes? All my life, hated tomatoes. And then one day I said, wait a minute, how can I change my mind about the world? Because of course in Miracles always says, don't change the world, change your mind about the world, right? How can I change my mind about the world if I can't even change my mind about tomatoes? So I started eating tomatoes and I started noticing that I don't like. And in that case, I even started questioning, why don't I like? It's the texture, it's the way they squish in your mouth. Well, what's so bad about that? What's it matter? And I just really started eating tomatoes very consciously. Do you know I'm totally fine with tomatoes now? I don't have any problem with tomatoes. It was all thought. In fact, really, think about it. If you don't like a food because of the texture, isn't that just a thought? That's not even the taste that you don't like, right? The texture. I don't like the way it feels in my mouth. That's a thought, for God's sakes. So as this says, I only have the experience of not liking if I believe the thought I don't like. And that's something I think it's kind of fun to play with. You guys might want to start playing with it. I still don't want to try liver. I think, is that okay if I don't want to go all the way to liver? I can do almost anything else. I'm just not ready for liver. Maybe someday I'll get there. But try playing with it. You might find, maybe you will still have a liver, maybe it's not liver itself, but maybe there'll still be something that you just don't want to go quite that far with. But you might find that there are a lot of things that you have been grumpy about or cut out of your life or try to avoid that are completely unnecessary because it's just thought. Like maybe you can be outside on a hot day if you have to be without being in a rotten mood and chewing everybody else out, right? Maybe that's possible. So let's go on with this. Let's see what comes next. I value or do not value thoughts. And through this process, I experience or do not experience the thought. In other words, I'm saying when I say I don't like tomatoes, and then I eat that tomato and it's all gross to me, I'm experiencing a thought. I'm not experiencing a tomato. I'm experiencing a thought about tomatoes. When I say I don't like that person, I'm experiencing a thought. I'm not experiencing the person. Right? So I value or do not value thoughts. And through this process, I experience or do not experience thoughts. That means thoughts are experiential objects, which, like food, can be tasted or not tasted. Right? And this is similar to what Rhoda was talking about this morning. She was talking about NTI Philippians chapter 2, I think. She was talking about how behavior according to NTI Philippians, whatever the body does, whatever I get out there and do with, like if I'm getting real grumpy in the heat, let's say, getting real grumpy in the heat and snapping at my family members for making me go to the zoo when it was 100 degrees out, right? What NTI Philippians says is that is not actually, I don't remember the exact words, Rhoda. You probably could do it better than me now. That's not exactly behavior. What that is the image of a thought being expressed. In other words, I believed a thought. That's the thought being expressed, believe it or not, my belief going to it. I believed a thought, and now the image of that thought is playing out by this body and this personality being all grumpy about the heat. That's the same thing this is saying. It's saying thoughts are experiential objects. If you believe them, you're going to experience them. They're experiential objects. If you don't believe them, you don't have to experience them. It might be kind of interesting if you get time later to just kind of maybe set and brainstorm with yourself, what are a bunch of things that, maybe I don't like about my spouse, or I don't like about my house, or I don't like about my whatever. And then notice those are all thoughts. What if I didn't have, you hear people say, I can't even stand to hear him breathe. What if you didn't have the thought you can't stand to hear him breathe? Would that really be a problem? But is that a real problem? Or is that just a thought that you're experiencing when he's sitting there breathing? Right? Just play with, and then think about the cage that you're putting yourself in. All of these negative experiences that you're having that you don't have to have just because you're believing and then experiencing these thoughts. And then maybe to start to ask yourself, do I really want to be that closed in? Do I really want to be annoyed because he's breathing? How much sense does that make? Do I really want to be annoyed because of the way she chews her food? Or whatever. Do I even want to be, I mean, I know I used to be this way. I know a lot of people, every time they're around somebody else in a bad mood, they have to get in a bad mood too. Do I really want that? Isn't that just a thought that I need everybody else to be happy? Can't I let them be whatever experience they want to have right now? Can I let them be there and me be happy? So what are all of the ways that I am limiting my positive experience by putting negativity into it because I'm believing thoughts and therefore experiencing those thoughts? And am I ready to let any of these thoughts go? Can I change my mind about tomatoes? Is maybe this smell okay? Is maybe this sound okay? Right? And just start wherever you want to start. So this continues. Just now there was a thought, I am tired of this inquiry process. Anybody ever experienced that thought? Yeah. Just now there was a thought, I am tired of this inquiry process. For a moment, I felt mental and physical tiredness. But then alertness saw the thought. A wordless inquiry took place. Who am I? Attention separated the thought and experience from I, and refocused on I. There is no tiredness in I. This clarity exposed both the thought and sensation of tired as not true. In the clarity of seeing, the experience of tiredness vanished. And I'm sure you guys have heard me talk before about how I used to hate pulling weeds, hate doing dishes, hate doing laundry. Well, that's ridiculous because guess what? I got to do all that stuff. Well, maybe I don't have to pull weeds anymore. I make Ron do that now. He does the outside stuff. I do the inside stuff. We have a deal. But I just spent the morning cleaning house because I haven't been here in a few days. And, I like to clean the house an hour a day so it doesn't get to be that big of a job, but I haven't been here in a few days. So I had to do about 3 hours of cleaning in a row. And that's how I listened to Cindy, and I listened to Rhoda, and I listened to Anne, and I listened to Shauna. There's nothing wrong with that. But once upon a time, I would have hated cleaning. It would have put me in a bad mood that I got to spend all morning cleaning. It did hurt my back a little bit, which is why I'm in a different chair. And if some of you guys are watching me, I was moving around trying to find a chair that my back liked. But I'm smiling. Why would I hate cleaning house? And this is another way I've looked at it before. You guys all know this. I like a clean house. So why would I hate cleaning house? Do you see the conflict I'm creating for myself? I want a clean house, but I hate cleaning it. What do we do to ourselves when we have those kinds of conflicting thoughts, right? And I don't have to experience, I hate cleaning house. I don't even have to experience, I suppose, I like a clean house. I didn't when I was with Laurent. When I was with Laurent, that was the whole point there. The house was anything but clean. And I learned to be happy with that too. But now he's not here, and, I can clean house and like it and keep a clean house. It's all fine. But how am I making my experience negative? That's the real question. How am I making my experience negative just because I'm believing a thought I don't have to believe? And what would happen if I chose to bypass the thought? Doing dishes is a fun one. Really doing them, like, not with the dishwasher, but with warm, soapy water. The mind will say, I hate doing dishes. But if you bypass that thought, that's actually a pleasurable experience. The soap smells good. It's warm on the hands. The dishes get all clean and sparkly. There's nothing bad about that experience at all, except the thought, right? So, what does this mean? Thought, attention, and body work together in non-alertness to create a false experience that is identified with as I. This creates a false I, a me having experience which is not at all true, like the experience of I hate cleaning house. So that's a me, isn't it? And it's not even it's not true. It's just a thought. Here I am, the one who hates cleaning house. And the only reason that that identity is there is because I believed a thought. The one that hates hot days or hates cold days, can't stand animals in the house. Whatever. All these individual personality things are just thoughts. And again, if you don't like having animals in the house and you live alone, that's fine. But what happens if you fall in love with someone and want to live with that person and they have a pet? Can you let it go? Or are you going to drag in, I hate animals in the house, in that relationship, and sabotage your relationship with a thought? You see what we do to ourselves? Anybody who knows me knows if it was up to me, I wouldn't have a dog right now. But there she be over there laying down because my partner wanted a dog. Oh, and guess who takes care of it most of the time? But that's cool. It's cool. It's really, this is what this is all about. If I was all alone and I didn't want a dog, That would be fine. But I'm not all alone. Can I let go of the thought and love the dog and take care of the dog and be happy? Or do I have to spend the next 15 years saying, well, I didn't want a damn dog, right? And then that's me, the one that didn't want a damn dog. That's the false I. I'm the one that didn't want a damn dog. No, 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 no. It was a thought that didn't want a dog. It was a thought. It was a thought that I would be freer if I didn't have a dog. It was a thought that I wanted to have a certain imaginary future. The way, I mean, I'm sure I've told this story too, but the way the dog happened was I realized it was a thought. It's funny because I love dogs. Anybody who knows me also knows I love dogs. I go crazy over about every dog I see. Probably see me teaching before. La, 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 la. Oh, a dog. I love dogs. But I didn't want one. I'd had them before and I just didn't want one. And so what happened was I love dogs. So I would go look at pictures of dogs at the shelter, not because I wanted one, just because I like looking at them. That's all. I just like looking at them. And so I was looking at pictures of dogs and I'd show them to Ron. And one day I showed Ellie to Ron and he's like, oh, he liked the way she looked. He's like, oh, he's like, why don't you call about that dog? And I said, no, I don't want a dog. And like a day or two later, he goes, did you call about that dog? Like, no, because I don't want a dog. And this went on for, 4, 5, 6 days. And finally it hit me that I was resisting. In his way, he was asking me to call about this dog, and I was resisting, and it hit me that I was doing that. And so I called about the dog, and the rest is history. Now we have a dog. But I didn't want to resist. This was a spiritual decision that I made. I didn't want to resist. I wanted to accept what the universe was bringing. He was asking every day, did you call about the dog? Apparently the universe was bringing the dog. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if it's done anything for me, but man, has this done something for her. This dog was the most terrified dog I have ever seen in my life. She would not eat with a human in the room. She would not drink with a human in a room. She was just so afraid. She wouldn't go in kitchen. She was terrified of kitchens. When we first got her, she was scared of doors. It took forever to get her to walk through a door. It's clear that she had, I would say, been abused, right? She didn't know what was coming through the next door. The first time I held out food to her, like you hold out a little piece of food to most dogs that come over and get it. She turned and ran so fast, and she was on my deck and she had to run down the stairs. She fell down the stairs trying to get away from me and the food. It took 2 years before she started acting anything like a normal dog. And now we've had her 3.5 years and she's still unfolding, right? Still opening up like a normal dog. And in fact, most people teach their dogs not to beg at the table. We're thrilled that she does, right? We're thrilled that she does. So I don't know, what this whole thing was about, but I can tell you it was a good thing for her. It was a good thing for her. So a thought could have, if I'd stuck with my thought, I don't want that dog, who knows what her future would have been. She'd already been adopted and returned once because, of all of her problems, right? So it is evident then that false I is experienced through mind activity. I don't want a damn dog, right? I don't like the heat, whatever. It is evident then that false I is experienced through mind activity, which is permitted through the consent of non-alertness. Not paying attention to me holding on to the thought, I don't want a dog. See, that's what happened when Ron kept asking every day, did you call about that dog? Did you call about that dog? It woke me up out of my non-alertness. I was literally identified with the thought, I don't want a dog. That was a truth about me. You see? Until his asking and asking and asking woke me up to the fact that I had identified with that thought and that I was resisting the way the universe was attempting to go. And I then surrendered and I called about the dog. It is evident then that false I is experienced through mind activity, which is permitted through the consent of non-alertness. My God, that's a hell of a sentence. It's permitted through the consent of non-alertness. It is also evident that non-alertness is a viral habit. I mean, that's what we're looking at right now. How do I bring negativity into my life with this viral habit of non-alertness, where I'm identifying with all of these, I don't like that, I don't want that kind of thoughts? It is evident then that false I is experienced through mind activity, which is permitted through the consent of non-alertness. It is also evident that non-alertness is a viral habit. Non-alertness is like sleep, and the effects produced are like a dream. I then believe I'm the one who doesn't want a dog. That's who I am. You know, it's a dream I'm creating about myself. It is also noticed that there is a resistance that wants to shut down this observation and return quickly to the mind-produced effects. Now remember, this was written many years ago, right? This was written probably before I spent years sniffing smells that I thought were bad and changing my mind about them, right? This was written before I spent time noticing that the heat was okay and the cold was okay. This was written before I called about the dog, right? And listen to what I'm saying, right? This is before I spent all this time letting go of the I don't like thought. It is also noticed that there is a resistance that wants to shut down this observation and return quickly to the mind-produced effects. In other words, I want to cling to me as the one who doesn't want a dog. I want to cling to me as the one who hates cleaning house, but wants a clean house, by God. You know? You know, I want to cling to my negative experiences. Thank you very much. Because they're me. That's what this says. They make up who I am. Please let me be unhappy. It is also noticed that there is a resistance that wants to shut down this observation and return quickly to the mind-produced effects. This active resistance is seen and recognized for what it was. There was some clarity right there, you know? And in fact, I'm sure it was this seeing and recognizing the active resistance for what it was that led me into the years of inhaling smells that my mind quickly said were bad and noticing that it was okay in the heat and okay in the cold. I mean, this is literally, I mean, I practice this stuff. And I also, another thing I loved to practice was when I was in somebody else's house, listen to this, not having to take me there. And here's what that meant. Like, I like to have a cup of coffee every morning. I really do. I enjoy my cup of coffee. But if I come to your house and you don't happen to have coffee, I don't need you to go out and get me some, or I don't need to go out and get some. I'm happy with whatever you provide. I don't want to have to bring me into your house. If you have coffee, great. Or what if, you know, like I like regular half and half. What if you don't have that? What if you only have the vanilla flavored stuff or the hazelnut flavored stuff? Then when I'm at your house, that's what I have. Even, I'm not a vegetarian anymore, but even when I was a vegetarian, When I went to somebody else's house, I ate whatever they served. I was a vegetarian on my time. Because if I have to bring me into your house, think about that. Aren't I clinging to me? What about if when in Rome, do as the Romans do, is actually a good spiritual practice? Just showing that for a few days or a few hours when I'm in someone else's house, I can be content with however that environment operates. Now, I always say the exception to this are allergies. You know, like if you're going to get really sick because you truly need to be gluten-free, well, that's a little different. But I'm talking about personality attachments, right? Personality attachments. What if we just adopt the practice that when I'm in somebody else's house, I don't take me there? You know, maybe I like to have a Diet Dr. Pepper every day, but can I come to your house where there is no Diet Dr. Pepper and be okay? One thing I always knew that I wanted from the spiritual path from the very beginning, before I was at all clear on really what the spiritual path really was, because I think that when we start this thing, we don't really have any idea what we're getting ourselves into. But one thing I was always clear that I wanted from the spiritual path was consistent happiness. And what we're talking about today is all the things that we bring, all of the thoughts that we think, all the attachments that we have, all the things that we bring to our experience that are getting in the way of our own consistent happiness. And they're just thoughts. They're just thoughts that we're experiencing because we identify with them. We're getting in our own way. We're doing it to ourselves. And we do it through the consent of non-alertness. In fact, another thing I heard Rhoda say this morning, which really fits with this, was she talked about doing a mind dump, just writing out all the thoughts. And she said the mind dump alone for her isn't enough. And I would agree on that completely. Unless she goes back and looks at those thoughts and realize that's just a thought. That's what we're talking about here. Seeing that's just a thought. It's just a thought that I don't want a dog. And here's the universe asking me to get a dog. Right? It's just a thought that, you know, I mean, I keep coming up with the same examples because obviously I'm coming up with my own. If you guys have any, you want to type them in. What are some things that you're seeing that you are doing to yourself? What are some of your thoughts? Feel free to type those in. Christmas tree should be down by now. You know what, Rhoda? I can't remember who it was, but a long time ago, I was in somebody's house where they kept the Christmas tree up year round, but they changed the decorations for every holiday. So like now, their Christmas tree would be covered with Valentine's stuff. I always thought that was such a cool idea. Never doing it myself, but I thought that was fun. Yeah. But really, I mean, think about it. The Christmas tree should be down by now. Is that worth bringing negativity into my life? Yeah, Natina put in one that might be a little more challenging. I don't know if you want me to read it out loud, say yes or no. No, I won't read it out loud. Okay, a little more challenging though. So those of you who are here can look at it. Some of this stuff takes a little deeper work. So sometimes you can just, well, it's kind of like liver and tomatoes almost, right? But some things are a little easier to change your mind about. Some things take a little more work. But I will tell you from my own experience, and I know this for a fact, that if you do the work, you will get to the point where you will either be happy with it as it is, or the other person of their own accord will start to drift out of your experience. Or you may even realize it's time for a change and walk away, but walk away without grievances and upsets, right? You just get this clarity. Happy with it as it is, nothing changes. Or the other person, without your request, makes the change. Or you realize, oh my gosh, I have to make a change here. So you do the work, and it won't be setting and stewing in it. That will go away one way or another, right? If you do the work. Yeah.
So I have one that I would share, Regina.
Oh, yes, please go right ahead, Regis.
Um, and I'm dealing with this, and I'm noticing it, but I'm still in that process. And it because Tina reminded me of it because mine is with my wife, and it is I can't be happy if she keeps her cell phone in her hand while we're watching TV. So,
Wow.
and I sit there and I'm like, but I don't have anything to say to her. So why does it bother me that she's got her cell phone looking at stuff and on Instagram and whatever, why does it, can't you put that down?
Yeah.
It's
And
like,
you're right, that's a thought. I mean,
yeah,
that's exactly what that is. That is
yeah,
a thought.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent example. I just love your look, by the way, lately. This change in Regis. It's so cool. Let's see. George, did you have something you wanted to share?
A question.
Yes.
It sounds like we're making thoughts out to be sort of the culprit, but I'm wondering if thoughts aren't really just a tool that resistance uses, and that the real problem is resistance.
Well, I would say that's it's a good question on how you want to look at it. But I think it could be called resistance, but the way I would say it is, it's how the ego maintains itself. And that is resistance to truth, right?
So yeah,
Yes,
go ahead.
these are ego maintenance techniques.
So the real problem is ego.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
But the funny thing is, see, there really is no ego, just like there is no mind.
Right.
It's a funny thing to try and pin a cause onto. It's more like a process that we need to get wise to. So whether you say it's the thoughts, or whether you say it's the resistance, or whether you say it's the ego, all those things are just appearances. None of them are real. So it's a process that creates these appearances that we are engaged in. And what we want to learn to do is to disengage from that process. And then our experience changes.
Right. I'm just wondering, what is resistance exactly?
Well, I can
Maybe
tell you the
thinking too much.
definite, I can tell you the definition that was given to me in NTI. It says, really, all experiences are just resistance or willingness. Resistance is resistance to truth. Willingness is willingness to realize truth. And every single experience can be one or the other. So in other words, I hate tomatoes is actually resistance to truth. I wonder if I can change my mind about tomatoes because I want to open my mind to truth is willingness. Go ahead, George.
Does it make sense to ask the question, why do we resist truth? Or am I just thinking too much?
Well, I would go ahead and ask the question. I would recommend asking it and get some clarity on why do I cling to my negativity? That's a good question, which is, why do I resist truth? Why do I cling to my sense of unworthiness? I think those are good questions. But we're now out of time. So it's been fun seeing y'all again. And I think next week, Wednesday is still January, right? Which means I'll be here. I think February starts on Thursday. So I'll see you guys next week. Bye.